Picture sitting in a courtroom, anticipating a routine hearing, to see one of reality television's greatest betrayals unfold right before your eyes. The room is hushed. The judge sits in anticipation, and then out of nowhere, Robyn Brown, the wife who had always been Kody's pet favorite, rises from her seat with trembling hands but determination in her eyes. She addresses the judge directly and says, "Time, the truth is finally revealed. Kody and Meri have been keeping a secret affair, and the world needs to know." Gasp fills the courtroom. Reporters grab for pens, camera shutters start snapping, and even the judge leans forward in shock. For years, fans believed they had witnessed every shred of drama play out in the sister wives' household. But this moment would be remembered as the ultimate bombshell ever. To see the severity of Robyn's bombshell words, you must recall how it all started. Kody Brown's life as a polygamist was always complex. Balance of relationships, feelings and egos among more than one wife had already brewed endless storms of jealousy and distrust. Robyn was usually shown to be the favorite, the one that Kody favored with most of his attention, and Meri, being the first wife, struggled behind. But what Robyn disclosed in court turned the entire narrative on its head. Rather than abandoned, Meri had supposedly been part of a clandestine arrangement with Kody, a friendship replete with vows, late-night talks, and an unspoken agreement that none of the other wives were privy to. For years, rumors of unresolved emotions between Kody and Meri had been swirling among fans, even as the two declared publicly they were separate and emotionally distanced. Robyn's testimony on the stand merely validated all of the whispers and speculations that fans had shared in hushed tones behind closed doors. Robyn wasn't simply throwing out accusation after accusation. She was armed, raising documents, messages, and even personal notes. She portrayed a picture of a far more complicated reality than the cameras had ever portrayed. "Then they had meetings behind my back," she insisted, her voice shaking but firm. "They vowed allegiance to one another in ways they never vowed it to the rest of us. When I was standing up for this family, they were standing up for each other." The courtroom audience gasped. This wasn't the Robyn fans had grown accustomed to, the gentle, supportive wife. This was Robyn the accuser, the woman who had finally reached the end of her tolerance for being labeled the manipulative outsider. She reversed things, portraying herself as the one who was betrayed. Kody, his face reddening and his anger boiling, pounded his hand on the table. "This is crazy. None of this is true," he yelled. But the judge did not hesitate to cut him off, reminding him that interruptions would not be accepted. For the first time in a very long time, Kody wasn't running things. Robyn's matter-of-fact but biting presentation starkly contrasted with Kody's rage. She recounted whispered exchanges, odd-hour phone calls, and mysterious messages hinting at more than casual acquaintance between Kody and Meri. Each detail she presented drove the courtroom further into shock. And then there was Meri's breaking point. Having remained silent for much of the hearing, she finally spoke. Her voice, soft as it was, carried years of secrets. "Kody made promises to me that he never made to anyone else," she confessed. "We had an understanding, one that we never imagined anyone would ever find out." The room fell into silence once more. Robyn smiled subtly, realizing she had put Meri on the spot. Kody covered his face with his palms, aware that the scandal was now inescapable. After several hours of sparring testimony, the judge held up a hand to quiet the room. Everyone waited with bated breath for judgment on what had transpired. "This isn't just about broken trust within a family," the judge announced. "This is about manipulation, dishonesty, and abuse of relationships. Mr. Brown, your conduct has not just torn apart your family, but deceived the court and the public as well." The judge's words fell with the force of a hammer. Instantly, the case was no longer one of property division or family discord. It had turned into a trial of integrity, truth, and betrayal. The stakes were enormous. All that Kody had constructed, his reputation, his relationships, even his financial security, was now on the line. When the hearing concluded, the courthouse steps erupted into a war zone of flashing cameras and reporters yelling questions. Robyn emerged first, her head held high, a confident look on her face. She had changed the dialogue in her favor, depicting herself not as the manipulator, but as the whistleblower who was brave enough to reveal the truth. Cody trailed behind, his face a tempest of frustration and humiliation. For a man who had constructed his entire sense of self on control, leadership, and authority, this was a blow. He seemed smaller, weaker, and completely defeated. And then there was Meri. Crying softly and shaken, she escaped out a side door, eluding the reporters. She knew the secret she had fought to keep for so long was now out. Her secret relationship with Cody had been pulled into the public eye, and there was no turning back. The courtroom scandal didn't end on those courthouse steps. It was carried like wildfire throughout the sister wives' fan base. Social media went off. Some fans supported Robyn, applauding her for finally confirming what they had always guessed. Some turned against her, accusing her of dismantling the family even more. But the biggest shock was reserved for Kody and Meri. For years they had downplayed their connection, claiming distance, separation, and even indifference. Robyn's testimony and Meri's reluctant confession exposed them as liars, not only to their family, but to the millions of fans who had followed their journey. Questions filled the air. If Cody could lie about this, what else had he hidden? Was Robyn really the victim? Or was she playing her riskiest card to date to protect herself? And most importantly, could the Brown family ever heal from this magnitude of betrayal? Ultimately, it wasn't just about right and wrong. It was about trust. Trust between the wives, trust in Cody's leadership, and trust from the viewers who had invested years watching their saga play out. That trust was destroyed. Robyn, defiantly in front of the cameras, spoke her last words. The truth was always there. I just had the courage to say it. And with that, she walked out, leaving a broken man, a heartbroken Meri, and a family dynasty in shambles due to lies. So, here's the million-dollar question. Was Robyn really revealing the truth? Or was this her final power move against Kody and Meri? Was Cody's clandestine affair with Meri real love? Or merely another manipulation to maintain power? And how will this explosive courtroom scandal forever alter the sister wives' legacy? One thing is for sure. This is not reality TV anymore. This is betrayal, truth, and devastation unfolding on the grandest stage of them all. And the world will never be able to view the Browns in the same light again. The courthouse was abuzz that morning. Camera-wielding reporters hung outside, microphones in hand, hushed speculating about what was to come. Sister Wives fans had assembled too, waiting to see history unfold. Everyone realized this was not going to be a typical day in court. Something was about to blow, and the air felt thick with tension, like the stillness before a storm breaks out. Inside, the courtroom was packed to capacity. Seats were taken, lawyers pushed papers, journalists jotted down notes, and the faint buzz of stifled conversations rippled from bench to bench. But then the doors burst open, and silence washed over the room like a wave. Kody Brown entered first, his shoulders rigid, his jaw clenched. The man who once openly stood up and called himself the boss of his family seemed diminished in the glare of fluorescent lighting. His eyes flashed anxiously around the room, and although he strove to maintain a confident gait, it was evident that the burden of the moment was weighing him down. Meri arrived a few moments later, her skin pale but collected. She sidestepped eye contact with the onlookers, her eyes fixed on the ground as though she desired to disappear. Fans had witnessed her walk through heartache, loneliness, and separation from Cody over the years. But today there was something in her aura unspoken, a fear that wasn't shared, as if she sensed what was to come. And then Robyn arrived. Unlike the rest, she did not enter quietly. She moved with a sort of intensity that commanded immediate attention. Her eyes were piercing, her face resolute, and in her hand, she gripped a folder full of papers. She wasn't here to be the peacemaker. She was here to wage war. The judge entered, and everyone stood up. Once the formality was over, the hearing started. Initially, it was just like any other stressful hearing, with attorneys arguing and bringing up evidence. But then Robyn got up. She did not let her attorney speak for her. She stood before the judge and spoke in a voice that was initially shaking but got stronger with each sentence. "Your Honor," she started, the room immediately going silent. "There are things about my husband Cody, and about Meri, that have never been revealed. Things that alter everything we think we know about this family. The audience shifted uneasily. Even the judge was caught off guard by her bluntness. But Robyn wasn't done yet. She shook the folder she held in her hand and stated, "Today, I will tell you the truth about Kody and Meri's intimate affair." The reaction was immediate. Gasps echoed through the room. Journalists leaned forward, scribbling furiously. Kody's face drained of color, his mouth opening as if to protest. But no words came out. Meri's head snapped up, her eyes wide with panic. For years the viewers had witnessed the gradual breakdown of the marriage of Kody and Meri. They saw the estrangement, the uncomfortable talks, the hurt of the catfishing scandal, and the emotional distance that came after. The narrative was always that their marriage was basically over, that Kody had moved on, primarily with Robyn, leaving Meri lonely and alone. Now Robyn was turning that narrative on its head. They told everyone they were finished. Robyn went on, her tone becoming sharper. But when the doors were closed, it was different. They had something, a bond, a secret affair that none of us were supposed to find out about. And they lied. Not just to me. Not just to the other wives. No, to the whole world. The words fell like a clap of thunder. The courtroom, already charged, now resonated with shock. Murmurs spread across the benches. One woman in the audience placed a hand over her mouth in shock. A reporter dropped his pen. This was not merely family tragedy. It was high-order betrayal. Kody finally spoke up. "This is absurd," he cried, pounding his fist on the table. His attorney pulled at his arm, trying to get him to sit down. But Kody's anger erupted. "She's inventing this. This is all lies." The judge slammed the gavel repeatedly. "Mr. Brown, calm down or you will be escorted from the courtroom." The room fell silent once more, every eye swinging back to Robyn. She did not even blink at Kody's fury. Instead, it seemed to strengthen her determination. She opened the folder, extracting papers, printed text messages, notes, and highlighted documents. "Your Honor," she said, waving them in the air, "I have proof." Messages exchanged between Kody and Meri. There were late-night talks, promises that weren't ever meant to reach the light of day. This is no speculation. This is the reality. Meri's eyes filled with tears. Her hands trembled in her lap, as though every secret she had tried to bury was being dug up, piece by piece, for the world to see. She whispered something under her breath, but the microphone didn't catch it. The judge leaned in, now evidently interested. "Mrs. Brown, if you do have evidence, it will be formally brought forward. But for the time being, I will permit you to present your allegations." Robyn nodded, her voice barely cracking as she went on. "I was a good wife. I stood up for Kody. I thought I was his partner in all things. But meanwhile, he and Meri were hiding this from me, from us. They had their own connection, their own agenda, and I was just left behind." The theatrics of the moment had never been witnessed before by the Sister Wives fans. This wasn't a hushed-out cry on a couch, or a sobbing confession on TLC's camera. This was raw, open exposure in a courtroom where there was no place for lies to hide. Kody's lawyer finally rose, objecting loudly, insisting that Robyn's statements were exaggerated, taken out of context, or motivated by jealousy. But the damage was done. The seed of doubt had been planted, and no objection could erase the image of Kody and Meri's secret bond from the minds of everyone in that room. Meri finally spoke up. Her tone was quiet but had enough gravitas to shut down even the buzzing rumors. "Kody and we did share things that people didn't know. We had a deal." She hesitated, her eyes shining with tears. "But it wasn't meant to hurt anybody. We thought it was ours alone to bear." The revelation was sufficient to set the room in an uproar once more. Journalists yelled out questions. The crowd gasped in horror, and even the judge had to call for order repeatedly. Kody looked at Meri in shock, betrayed by her silent admission. And Robyn? She stood as tall as ever, her expression a combination of heartbreak and vindication. She had accomplished something no one believed she would. She had uncovered the covert relationship that destroyed the thoughtfully constructed image of the Browns. At the end of that very first day in court, one thing was certain. This was no longer simply a family feud. This was the public unmasking of betrayal, and it would forever alter the course of the Sister Wives saga. The air in the courtroom was already thick with shock after Robyn's first revelation. The bombshell about Kody and Meri's secret relationship had rattled everyone, but Robyn wasn't finished. Far from it, what came next would completely flip the power dynamics, not just in the courtroom, but in the entire story of the Brown family. Robyn stood in the middle, clutching her chunky folder of documents. The intensity in her eyes had shifted. Initially, she had seemed timid, her voice shaking with emotion. But today, something different emanated from her control. She had spent years being perceived as the lady who lived in the shadow of Kody, the wife who was accused of manipulating herself into favor. Today, Robyn took center stage with a power that no one anticipated. She cleared her throat and stared straight at the judge. "Your Honor, for years folks have had it wrong about me. They said I was the one who destroyed this family. But today, I want to present you with the truth. Kody and Meri were hiding secrets. And she pulled out her folder for emphasis. I am the one who has the proof." The gallery gasped once more. Reporters wrote so fast that their pens threatened to rip the paper. Some fans in the back even whispered to one another, "She's bringing him down." Kody fidgeted in his chair. His swagger was nowhere to be found, replaced by the twitchy look of a man losing himself. He looked over at Meri, but she averted her eyes, looking at the desk before her. Robyn opened the folder and drew out the first page. It was a typed text conversation, blown up so that the court could read. These are messages between Kody and Meri, late at night, messages they never wanted anyone else to read. They discuss covert meetings, about promises, about loyalty to them, to one another over the rest of us. She hesitated, her gaze tightening at Kody. They said they were finished with the world. They said it to us too. But in private, it was quite another story. The judge sat forward more, clearly interested. "Mrs. Brown, are you alleging that Mr. Brown misrepresented his relationship with Meri to this court and to the public?" "Yes," Robyn replied firmly. "And it wasn't just accidental contact. It was on purpose. It was intentional. They lied." Kody leapt to his feet, finger pointed at her. "This is all distorted. She's twisting things out of context. You don't understand what those messages are?" The judge quickly held up a hand. "Mr. Brown, be seated. You will have your turn to reply. Don't interrupt." Kody slumped back in his chair, his cheeks flushed with rage. "Hey!" For the first time he was helpless. Robyn went on, her voice getting louder. "While I was battling to preserve this family unit, while I was standing up for Kody against criticism, he and Meri were secretly discussing their future. Their future together, with promises he never made to me, promises he never made to the other wives. And she pointed to the rest of the family, were supposed to accept that Kody had gotten over Meri, that their marriage was done. That was a lie." The words hovered in the air, heavy and irrefutable. For years the fans had thought that Robyn was the one in charge, the one Kody picked over the rest. But here, she flipped that narrative on its head. She painted herself as the jilted wife, the one who had been faithful, who had been supportive, only to learn that Kody's allegiance had been elsewhere all along. This turnabout surprised everyone. Even the people who didn't like Robyn couldn't deny the strength of her testimony. She wasn't merely accusing Kody. She was tearing down his whole persona. She produced more papers, handwritten letters, underlined text messages, bits of evidence that she said confirmed her argument. They had an agreement, she stated. A deal to keep their relationship alive in private. And the entire time I was defending them. Standing with Kody, being referred to as the favorite wife. But the reality is that I was being lied to as well. The crowd gasped in shock. A fan in the back whispered, "So she wasn't the favorite after all." Meri's face was as white as ice, her hands shaking in her lap. She ultimately looked up, looking at the audience before she spoke softly. "We didn't intend for it to end this way. Kody and we just couldn't let go entirely. We had an understanding." Her admission was soft, nearly reluctant, but sufficient. Sufficient to confirm Robyn's allegations. Sufficient to leave Kody without the cover of denial. The room erupted in whispers and gasps once again. The gallery was alive with shock. The judge had to bang the gavel multiple times to restore order. Kody. Quote's anger boiled over. This is betrayal, he snapped, glaring at Robyn. You're twisting everything just to save yourself. This is nothing but revenge. But his words rang hollow. The louder he yelled, the more diminutive he grew. His usual command, his dominance of the story were absent. The power had moved on. Robyn was in charge now, and she was playing her hand carefully. Robyn came at him, her tone cold. No, Kody, this is not about revenge. This is about the truth. For years I was faithful. I gave you everything, and you reserved your faithfulness for someone else, quietly, while making the world think that I was the issue. That is over today. Her words cut like daggers, slicing through the room. The judge leaned forward, speaking to Kody. Mr. Brown, these are serious charges, backed up by testimony and what looks to be documentary evidence. If they prove to be true, this could have serious repercussions, not just for this case, but for your credibility in the future. Kody slumped back, his bravado gone. The courtroom buzzed again. It was clear Robyn had turned the tables completely. By the end of the session, the entire narrative had flipped. Robyn wasn't the manipulator anymore. She was the exposer, the whistleblower, the wife who had dared to call out Kody and Meri's hidden bond in front of the world. The audience left stunned. Reporters rushed to file their stories. Social media exploded with reactions. Robyn just destroyed Kody in court. Meri admitted everything. Wow. We've been watching a lie for years. The scandal had taken on a life of its own, and the Brown family would never be the same. As the judge took a recess for the day, Robyn carefully folded up her folder, her expression tranquil but resolute. She had done the unthinkable, made years of accusations that had been levied against her into her strongest weapon. And in so doing she had left Kody cornered, Meri exposed, and the whole sister wives' kingdom shaken to its foundations. The courtroom had already seen its share of fireworks. Robyn's shocking accusations, Meri's reluctant confession, and the judge's warnings had created a storm of tension. But what came next, Kody Brown's complete loss of control, would be the turning point that no one would ever forget. The walls of the courthouse seemed to close in on Kody. He was sweating, fidgeting with his hands, his eyes scanning the room as if looking for a lifeline. For years he had been the focal point of power in his family. His word was law. His voice mattered. His presence commanded every discussion. But here, before the judge, the attorneys and the blinding cameras, Kody appeared to be a man cornered, trapped and desperate. It started with a slam. His fist struck the wooden table with such force that the sound resonated through the quiet court. Head swiveled toward him. The audience halted. Even the reporters stopped mid-sentence, pen suspended over paper. This is ridiculous, Kody growled, his face red. He was shouting too loudly, off the walls. She's manipulating everything. Robyn is lying. And Meri glared at Meri with flames in his eyes. You weren't supposed to say that. The tension exploded like a gunshot. The audience gasped, and Meri's face turned white. The betrayal in Kody's voice wasn't just directed at Robyn. It was aimed at Meri too. He had counted on her silence, on her loyalty to their secret, but her hesitant admission had cut him to the core. Mr. Brown, the judge yelled, slamming the gavel down on the bench. Refrain from yourself. One more display of temper and you will be held in contempt. But Kody wasn't hearing. Decades of anger, pride, and ego flowed from him in a tide. Do you people see what's going on here? He bellowed, his body facing the gallery. His arms waved, his face shaking with rage. I've been made out to be the villain for decades. Everyone thinks I'm the manipulator, the liar, the man who abandoned his wives. But this, he gestured wildly toward Robyn and Meri. This is nothing but an ambush. They want to destroy me. The room buzzed with whispers. Some nodded, sympathizing with his desperation, but most looked unconvinced. His shouting didn't sound like a defense. It sounded like a man losing his grip on reality. Robyn sat quietly, near serenely, as she watched Kody come undone. She did not have to fight anymore. His own words, his own rage, were proving his undoing. She folded her hands neatly in her lap, her eyes fixed on him, unyielding. Meri, meanwhile, seemed devastated. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. She would not look at Kody. Her body slumped as if attempting to make herself invisible. Her silence spoke volumes. She simply didn't have the strength to defend herself, or him. Mr. Brown. The judge's voice sliced through the din like a knife. This is not your family's living room. This is a court of law. If you persist in these interruptions, I will have no choice but to exclude you from these proceedings. The danger lay suspended, threatening. Kody's chest rose and fell beneath his shirt. As he struggled to get a grip on himself, he settled back into his chair, grumbling under his breath, his fists so tight that his knuckles whitened. Kody had never not been in charge of his own story. He'd never not been the leader, the decision maker, the voice of reason. He was just another guy in a courtroom, bound by the same rules as everyone else. And the world was waiting to see him fall apart. Robyn took advantage of the moment. Her voice was so calm, so soft, but each word was cutting. Your Honor, do you see? This is who Kody really is when the facade is stripped away. For years he stood here as the leader, the father, the man holding everything together. But the truth? He's a man who covers, who schemes, who rages when he's trapped. His fury doesn't eliminate the proof. His yelling doesn't alter the facts. The judge slightly nodded, obviously identifying the difference between Robyn's calmness and Kody's fury. The shift in power was undeniable. Kody ground his teeth, looking at her. You're doing it because you can't tolerate the truth. You've always resented what I had with Meri. You cut off in mid-sentence, remembering that he had spoken too quickly. The gallery again exploded. Reporters rushed to scribble down the gaffe, the one thing he had sought to deny. His connection with Meri, he had just acknowledged in anger. Meri's tears began to become more intense. At last, she raised her head, her face flushed and smeared with tears. "Stop it, Kody," she breathed, her voice breaking. "Stop acting as if everything is someone else's responsibility. We both know what the reality is. You made commitments to me that you couldn't fulfill. You shared secrets with me in private that you did not want anyone to ever know. And now everything is being revealed." Her statement brought the room to an instant silence. Even Kody froze, his mouth opening but no words coming out. The weight of Meri's admission was devastating. She wasn't protecting him anymore. She was letting the truth bleed out, piece by piece, and the world was watching. Kody leaned back in his chair, his face a mask of disbelief. He shook his head, muttering, No, this isn't happening." His hands trembled. The former authoritative patriarch now resembled a shattered man, stripped of his control and standing naked before everyone. The judge spoke once more to him, sternly. "Mr. Brown, you are no longer running this proceeding. The evidence will be tested, and the truth will be revealed, whether you like it or not." Those words were it. Kody was not merely taken aback. He was defeated. His efforts to shout over the allegations, to manipulate the narrative in his own interest, had not worked. Each rage-filled diatribe had served only to harden Robyn's position, confirm her assertions, and underscore his desperation. The crowd could sense it, the energy shift. Kody, once larger than life, was deflating before their very eyes. Robyn was standing taller, growing more confident. Meri found herself torn in the middle. Her crying belied the weight of secrets too overwhelming to bear. Journalists were all eyes, knowing they were seeing history unfold. Fans in the courtroom gallery murmured, some nodding their heads, others grinning at the fall of the man they had long suspected of concealing facts. A reporter leaned over to another one and said, "He just admitted it without even knowing. This is going to blow up everywhere." At the conclusion of the session, the judge slammed the gavel. "We will reconvene tomorrow. Court is adjourned." The room was filled with commotion, reporters spilling out, fans humming, lawyers rushing about. Kody sat motionless, gazing blankly ahead, his hands still shaking. He was far from the fearless, untouchable figure fans had grown accustomed to seeing on TV for years. He was battered. Robyn coolly collected her papers, her face impassive. She did not gloat, but the slightest glimmer of satisfaction danced in her eyes. She had gotten the upper hand, and now Kody was trapped. Meri exited silently, head dropped, tears still streaming. For her, the outing wasn't a triumph. It was tragedy. The gossip she had fought so energetically to keep hidden had been pulled out of the shadows, and there was no going back. Outside, flashes illuminated the scene as the Browns filed out individually. Reporters yelled questions. Robyn, do you have more evidence? Kody, did you really vow Meri a secret future? Meri, do you regret admitting the truth? But none of them replied. The drama was far from over. It had just hit its most perilous point. Undefined. Kody had been taken by surprise, and the consequence was only starting. The courtroom still buzzed from Kody's breakdown. Reporters whispered, fans gasped, and even the attorneys appeared rattled. But when the judge brought his gavel up again, the room dropped into an uncomfortable silence. Everyone knew the next few words would alter everything. Kody sat rigidly, his jaw tight, his eyes flicking between Robyn and Meri. His previous tirade had left him dripping, his skin pale, his body fidgety. Robyn, on the other hand, sat firm, her hands clasped neatly together, a calm confidence emanating from her stance. Meri was still the most fragile, all red about the eyes from weeping, her shoulders hunched under the burden of shame and fatigue. The judge cleared his throat, his voice slicing through the silence like a knife. Let me be absolutely clear, he stated firmly, his eyes boring into Kody. This is not a courtroom for theatrics. This is not a place for screaming, manipulation, or intimidation. What is important here are the facts. And the facts are very disturbing. The words struck Kody as bricks. His mouth fell open as if to protest. But the judge held up a hand. Not one word, Mr. Brown. You will listen. Gasps spread through the gallery. For the first time, someone had stripped Kody of his power entirely. The man who had dominated his family with an iron fist was being ordered to sit down and shut up. Robyn's lips curled ever so slightly, just enough for the cameras to register. She didn't have to say a word. The judge was speaking for her. The judge leaned toward Brown. In the course of the last few hours, this court has received testimony that identifies a disturbing pattern of secrecy, manipulation, and betrayal. Mr. Brown, both Mrs. Brown, he nodded toward Robyn, and Miss Brown, his eyes turned to Meri, have provided statements that raise serious questions regarding your behavior. He paused, letting the seriousness of his words sink in. The crowd leaned forward, unwilling to miss a word. This court has also considered early evidence presented by counsel. The judge went on. Text messages, financial records, and private letters. Though the final verdict has not been issued, I must tell you the evidence does not present you in the best possible light, Mr. Brown. Kody's expression contorted in shock. His fingers clenched over the edge of the table. Those were personal. You can't. The judge slammed down the gavel. Be quiet, Mr. Brown. Private or not, now that they are here in court, they are part of the record. You asked for this. The gallery was filled with gasps once more. Reporters wrote frantically. Cameras snapped, and fans gasped in shock. Next came the punch that rocked the entire court. On the basis of what I have observed and heard today, the judge stated, I am imposing an immediate temporary injunction on Mr. Brown. Brown, from this moment on, you are not allowed to have any contact with either Mrs. Robyn Brown or Miss Meri Brown outside the presence of legal counsel. In addition, your financial accounts are now under court supervision until a thorough review is conducted. The words were shattering. Gasps dominated the room. Kody's jaw fell as if he had been punched. His world, the control, the money, the authority, was getting away from him in real time. Robyn's eyes opened a fraction, not in shock but in victory. She had called for accountability, and now, the judge had given it to her. Meri, though, seemed conflicted. She hadn't entered the courtroom with the intention to annihilate Kody totally. Her heart ached. But there was no stopping the judge's verdict now. Kody leaped from his seat, finger at the judge, his voice shaking with fury. This is madness. You can't take everything away from me. I created this family. I constructed everything that they have. They are nothing without me. The courtroom became chaotic. Reporters yelled, fans gasped, and bailiffs edged in to subdue him. The judge repeatedly banged the gavel. Sit down, Mr. Brown. This is your last warning before I hold you in contempt of court. But Kody wasn't listening. His voice trembled as he yelled. You're all against me. Robyn, Meri, the court, the media, you all want me to fail. But I won't. Do you hear me? I won't. It was a sad spectacle. The former authoritative patriarch always fell to shouting, his desperation exposed for all to witness. Robyn sat in silence, unruffled and serene, her passivity more potent than any defense. She didn't have to stand, didn't have to shout. The judge's decree had taken care of business for her. To the rest of the world, Robyn was once again the victim who had suffered years of manipulation and was now finally getting her comeuppance. The camera zoomed in on her calm face, juxtaposed with the frantic anger of Kody. In that instant, opinion turned like a tidal wave. The headlines wrote themselves. Kody loses control. Judge takes away his power. Meri, on the other hand, wiped away her tears, gazing down at the table. She hadn't anticipated it spinning this far. Yes, she had confessed the truth. But she hadn't asked for Kody to be muzzled, his finances put into freeze, his whole image demolished. Her anguish was clear, her grief tangible. She was a woman between truth and loyalty, wrenched apart by a secret that had now destroyed the very same family she once held on to. Her softly spoken words, barely sounded but picked up by the closest microphone, rang out loud. It was never supposed to end like this. The judge gazed gravely at all three of them, before adjourning the session. This court does not accept lies, manipulation, or intimidation. Mr. Brown, you are not above the law. Mrs. Brown, Miss Brown, you will both be asked to testify further when this case continues. Until then, my order remains. Court is adjourned. The gavel slammed down with a deafening crack. The room descended into pandemonium the moment the judge exited. Journalists swarmed toward the doors to file the story. Fans buzzed with shock, incredulity, and even gratification. Kody collapsed into his seat, his face ashen, his frame shaking. He had just been handed the worst blow of his life, not from his wives, not from the media, but from the law itself. Robyn stood tall, picking up her papers, her gaze never wavering from Kody. No smile of conquest, no laugh of victory, only a silent, intense stare that spoke volumes. This is what you forced me to do. Meri stood more slowly, her movement heavy. She glanced at Kody once more, before turning away, a look of regret and grief on her face. She did not crave victory. She simply wanted harmony. But now there was no peace. The battle lines were drawn, and the fight had just started. Outside the courtroom building, cameras snapped like lightning. Journalists yelled questions, the crowd surged with excitement, and social media went wild with hashtags. #Kody, exposed #courtroom, drama #Brown family secrets. But within, there was no doubt Kody Brown had lost his authority. And the next hearing promised even more shocking secrets. Since, if this was the temporary verdict of the judge, what would be the final verdict's effect? The courthouse steps still hummed with conversation, following the previous explosive session. News trucks parked along the street, news reporters practiced live reports, and devoted fans jammed up against the barricade, anticipating the next installment in what had become a courtroom show, unlike anything the Sister Wives universe had ever experienced. Within, tension filled the air. Everyone was aware that today was different. This was not a typical day of testimony, or a fiery outburst. Today, the judge would render the final judgment, a verdict that could alter not only the Browns' lives, but the history of their whole family. Kody waited in the defendant's chair, his formerly commanding presence lowered. He appeared older, fatigued, as though the battle had been sucked out of him. His suit was rumpled, his hands shook slightly, and his eyes flipped wildly about the room. For a man who had made his personality a foundation of control, he now resembled a shadow of the man he once was. Robyn walked in with her chin up. She was calm, but a tempest brewed in her eyes. This was no longer about justice. It was about survival, about getting back the years she claimed had been taken from her on lies and deceptions. Meri came in last, her feet dragging, her face white. The courtroom fight had left her mentally shattered. She hadn't come to kill Kody, but the truth she'd allowed to escape had grown into something much bigger than she ever meant. The gallery filled fast, reporters, fans, and curious onlookers, all murmuring, all waiting. As the judge finally emerged, the room became heavy with silence. The judge's voice was full of authority, but also fatigue. This case has been peculiar in every way. It is not just about money, nor is it just about relationships. It is about truth, lies, and the repercussions of a double life. He hesitated, his eyes locked steadily on Kody. Throughout these proceedings, we have heard testimony that uncovered secret affairs, financial deceit, and emotional manipulation. We have examined evidence, text messages, emails, bank statements, that corroborated these allegations. And we have seen conduct in this courtroom that only confirmed the disturbing portrait drawn by the plaintiffs. Kody squirmed uncomfortably, but remained silent. The judge's words weighed heavily in the air like a cloud storming to release its fury. Mrs. Robyn Brown, the judge went on, you presented yourself before this court with claims of years of deception. You asserted that Mr. Brown had been keeping a secret relationship with Miss Meri Brown, all the while mismanaging funds and twisting reality. This court finds your testimony believable. Gasps were heard in the gallery. Robyn's eyes flew shut, relief spreading across her features. For years she had been branded a manipulator, an instigator, but now the court had declared her account of things true. She reached out to grasp her attorney's hand and nodded almost imperceptibly, her lips shaking with suppressed emotion. Miss Meri Brown, the judge then addressed her. Your position in this instance is nuanced. You are both victim and actor. You bore secrets that you should have disclosed earlier, and for this there are repercussions. But your court also understands the coercion and pressure to which you were subjected. The fact that you did in the end tell the truth is very much in your favor. Meri's tears flowed freely. She nodded, unable to speak. It was bittersweet. Her honesty had spared her the worst consequences, but the shame of being part of the secret still clung to her like a shadow. The crowd murmured amongst themselves. Some felt sorry for her, some judged her, but all were in consensus. Meri had gotten into a web much greater than she could ever manage. At last, the judge addressed Kody. The room fell silent. Even the clacking of keyboards from reporters stopped. Mr. Brown, the judge started slowly. Your conduct throughout these proceedings has been profoundly disturbing. You tried to take control of this courtroom, as you have taken control of your home. You yelled, you interrupted, you tried to distort the record. But the record doesn't lie, the testimonies don't lie, and your own words spoken in a rage betrayed you. Kody swallowed hard, his complexion pale. Through this court, you are found guilty of financial malpractice and hiding a personal relationship. With immediate effect, you are directed to pay restitution of $1.2 million to Mrs. Robyn Brown. Additionally, your accounts will continue under judicial oversight until restitution is fully paid. You are also forbidden from conducting any contractual negotiations on behalf of your family's public image without supervision. The punch was crushing. The gallery erupted into a gasp of shock. News reporters hastened to capture every nuance, and cameras popped wildly. But the judge was far from done. Furthermore, he declared, his tone even more intense. Because of your behavior in this courtroom, your tantrums, your disrespect for the process, I am personally fining you for contempt of court. Take this as a warning, Mr. Brown, that no man is above the law. Kody's jaw fell. His empire was disintegrating before his eyes. His money, his dominance, his status, it was all being taken from him in front of witnesses. The judge slammed the gavel for the last time. Court is adjourned. The instant the words echoed, pandemonium broke out. Reporters sprinted for the exits, yelling headlines into their phones. Gallery attendees buzzed frantically, some cheering, others shaking their heads in astonishment. Robyn stood, her eyes brimming. For the first time in years, she gazed at Kody not in fear, but in power. She had been vindicated. Meri got up slowly, holding her tissues. She did not look at Robyn. She did not look at Kody. She just walked out, her heart too heavy, with the realization that truth had finally brought her nothing. Kody said nothing, rigid, as if his body could not absorb what had transpired. His attorney moved closer, speaking in a hushed tone, but Kody did not stir. His empire lost, his family destroyed, his secrets exposed. Beyond the courthouse doors, the world was ablaze. Cameras popped like lightning, Microphones thrust into all faces, headlines already rippling across social media. Kody Brown ordered to pay $1.2 million to Robyn. Meri's secret relationship with Cody exposed in courtroom shocker. Sister wives' empire crumbles in legal disaster. Fans took sides online. Some defended Cody, saying he was unfairly targeted. Others praised Robyn for finally standing up to him. And many expressed heartbreak for Meri, caught in the middle of a secret she could never escape. YouTube channels lit up, podcasts exploded, and Twitter trended with hashtags like #CodyExposed, #BrownFamilyVerdict, #Justice for Robyn, #Pray for Meri. The Sister Wives universe would never be the same. As the world swirled outside, cameras captured the determining photo of the day. Cody exiting the courthouse, head in his hands, shoulders slumped in defeat. Robyn trailing behind, her attorney, her chin held high, her face set with determination. And to the side, Meri slipping into a waiting car, her tears still wet, her anguish reflected in each movement. It was the ideal snapshot of a family torn asunder, a legacy in shambles, and a decision that rocked the globe. But even as the dust finally settled, one question remained in the minds of all who watched. Was this really the end of Kody Brown, or was it merely the beginning of an uglier, more desperate battle to reclaim what he had lost? Because if history had taught us anything, it was that Cody never went quietly into the night. The fight may have been won in court, but the war over the future of the Brown family was only just beginning.